4,700 degrees Celsius. That is hotter than the surface of the sun, and it was produced by a bubble, a tiny invisible bubble in the ocean, created by the snap of a shrimp's claw. When physicists first measured this, they thought their instruments were broken. They weren't. This is the story of sonoluminescence, sound becoming light, a mystery that has haunted physics for 92 years, and by the end of it, you'll understand why the answer might be hiding in places no one has thought to look. Germany, 1934. Hitler has been chancellor for just over a year. Universities are racing to build military technology. Two acoustic researchers at the University of Cologne, Hermann Frenzel and H. Schultes, are working on sonar. Their job is simple. Drop an ultrasound transducer into a tank of photographic developer. See if sound waves speed up the chemical process. They develop the film, and something is wrong. Tiny dots scattered across the photographic plates, not chemical artifacts, not equipment errors. Light. Somehow, sound waves in liquid had created flashes of light. Microscopic bubbles collapsing with enough violence to expose film. Frenzel and Schultes published their finding. The scientific world shrugged. The phenomenon was too chaotic. Millions of bubbles, each lasting microseconds. Impossible to isolate with 1930s technology, so the discovery was filed away. A curiosity, a footnote, and it stayed that way for 55 years. But here's the part that changes everything. In 1989, a graduate student named Felipe Gaitan had an idea. What if you didn't try to study millions of bubbles? What if you trapped just one? Working with his advisor Lawrence Crum at the University of Mississippi, Gaitan used acoustic standing waves to do something nobody had done before. He held a single bubble in place, suspended in water, pulsing. And that bubble did something extraordinary. 25,000 times per second, it expanded, collapsed, and emitted a flash of light every single time, perfectly synchronized with the sound wave driving it. One bubble, one predictable rhythm, like a heartbeat made of light. Seth Putterman, a physicist at UCLA, saw this and said something that would define the field. He called it a star in a jar, and he meant it literally. Picture this: a darkened lab, a simple glass flask filled with water. You turn off the lights, and there, hovering in the center of the flask, is a tiny point of blue-white light. Steady. Pulsing too fast for your eyes to see. It genuinely looks like a miniature star. Putterman later wrote, "The first time I saw sonoluminescence was in a darkened room. It looked like a star in the heavens. Now, that bubble, thinner than a human hair. Each flash lasting between 35 and a few hundred picoseconds, a trillionth of a second. Light travels about 1 centimeter in that time. And the peak intensity? 1 to 10 megawatts. Your house uses about 2 kilowatts. For the briefest instant, a microscopic bubble is outputting the power of a small city. Think about that for a second. So, how hot does it actually get? Let's put it on a scale. Lava, about 1,200 degrees Celsius. Iron melts at 1,500. The snap of a shrimp's claw, we'll get to the shrimp, produces 4,700 degrees. The surface of the sun, 5,500 degrees. And in the lab, single bubble sonoluminescence in sulfuric acid has reached 20,000 Kelvin, nearly 4 times the surface of the sun. From a bubble you cannot see with the naked eye. The gas inside that collapsing bubble gets compressed so violently that it becomes plasma, ionized atoms. The same state of matter inside stars. heating and cooling at rates exceeding 1 trillion degrees per second. And here's something even the physicists find strange. Recent experiments showed that during the collapse, solar oxide molecules were vibrationally hot, over 2000 Kelvin, but rotationally cold, room temperature. Different parts of the same molecule experiencing radically different conditions at the same instant. Now, the shrimp, the pistol shrimp, also called the snapping shrimp, is about 5 centimeters long. One of its claws is enormous, bigger than half its body, asymmetrical, bizarre. That claw has a hammer. It cocks back to a right angle, and when it releases, it snaps shut like a pistol. The snap drives a jet of water at 90 kilometers per hour. That jet creates a cavitation bubble. The bubble expands, collapses, and for a fraction of 1/trillionth of a second, the water reaches 4,700 degrees Celsius. That collapse produces a shock wave of 208 10-doubles, louder than a gunshot. It stuns prey, kills small fish. But here's the part that made physicists do a double take. In October 2001, a team led by Detlef Loos and Michel Versluy at the University of Twente in the Netherlands, along with Barbara Schmitz in Munich, published a paper in Nature with a title that sounds like a joke. Snapping shrimp make flashing bubbles. They proved it. The collapsing bubble from a shrimp snap produces light. Real, measurable light. The first observation of sonoluminescence produced by any living creature. They called it shrimpoluminescence. And the irony? The shrimp doesn't know. It doesn't care about the light. It doesn't care about the heat. It evolved the snap for the shock wave. The temperatures hotter than the sun's surface are just a side effect. Nature solved sonoluminescence millions of years ago. Humans discovered it in 1934 and still can't fully explain how it works. One more thing about these shrimp. During World War II, colonies of snapping shrimp were so loud on the ocean floor that U.S. Navy submarines actually used the noise as acoustic cover. They hid in the shrimp's crackling to avoid Japanese sonar. A 5-centimeter shrimp, helping win a war. By accident, there's a detail about sonoluminescence I've been holding back. If a collapsing bubble can reach 20,000 Kelvin, if it can create plasma, then there's a question that kept physicists awake at night. Could you push it further? Could you make a bubble collapse so hard that atoms fuse together? Nuclear fusion in a beaker from sound waves. In 2002, a nuclear engineer named Russi Taliarkhan, working at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, announced that he had done it. He called it bubble fusion. He published in Science, one of the most prestigious journals in the world. The physics community held its breath. If this was real, it would be one of the most important discoveries in human history. Limitless clean energy. From sound waves around the world tried to replicate the experiment. UCLA, the University of Göttingen, the University of Illinois, Oak Ridge itself, the Office of Naval Research. None of them could reproduce his results. Then investigators found something worse. Taliarkhan had deliberately left his name off a 2005 paper by his own students, then cited that paper as independent confirmation of his own work. He manufactured his own supporting evidence. Purdue University found him guilty of research misconduct. He was stripped of his named professorship, barred from federal funding for 28 months. His career was over. The dream of fusion in a jar, the most exciting thing sonoluminescence could have given humanity, turned out to be the biggest fraud in the field's history. The star in a jar was real. The fusion was not. So where does that leave us? 92 years after Frenzel and Schultes found those mysterious dots on their film, sonoluminescence remains one of the most beautiful, unsolved problems in physics. We know the leading theory. Thermal Bremsstrahlung, ionized noble gases radiating as they decelerate during adiabatic collapse. That explains a lot, but not everything. Why are noble gases, especially argon, so much more effective? What role does water vapor play in limiting temperatures? Do quantum vacuum effects matter? Why does a single bubble behave so differently from a swarm? The answers are still out there, hiding in the physics of a collapsing bubble. Here's what stays with me. We built particle accelerators spanning 27 kilometers. We launched telescopes to the edge of the solar system. We split atoms and mapped genomes, and we still cannot fully explain what happens inside a bubble in a glass of water. A 5-centimeter shrimp has been casually performing one of physics' greatest tricks for millions of years. It never needed to understand it. It just does it. Every snap, every day. Next time you hear a crack on the ocean floor, or even just watch bubbles rise in a glass, remember? The most extraordinary physics doesn't always live in enormous machines. Sometimes it hides in the smallest, quietest places. What other miracles are we walking past every single day? Speaking of small creatures doing impossible things, there is an animal smaller than a grain of sand. It has survived the vacuum of outer space. Temperatures near absolute zero, pressures 6 times greater than the deepest ocean trench, radiation that would kill a human 1,000 times over. Scientists have boiled it, frozen it, blasted it with X-rays, launched it into orbit without a spacesuit. It came back alive. They call it a tardigrade, the toughest creature on Earth. And the way it survives should not be possible according to everything we know about biology. Title suggestions. 5 options. 1. The shrimp that's hotter than the sun, 49 chars. 2. Sound creates light, and nobody knows why, 44 chars. 3. A star in a jar, physics 92-year mystery, 44 chars. 4. How a shrimp breaks the laws of physics, 41 chars. 5. The bubble that reaches 20,000 degrees, 40 chars.